Iburu, Iboya, Ibuche, everybody in Cyberland. Sefer Babalao, Omoodun, Odileke, coming at you with another great video. And right now, my time, it's about to be 1 February, which means that we are 1 month down from 2022. And we covered a lot in 2022 with the letra de años, how we better align ourselves. Everybody should have already gotten their beginning of the year consultation, and everything should be moving. Okay, with that said, I would like to continue on the Meyi series and move on to Baba Odi Meji. Before I begin, give me the like, give me the subscribe. If you enjoy and value these videos, I need that like and I need that subscribe. So let's jump right in. All right, guys, Baba Odi Meji. Obviously, I'm Oddi Meji. So what does that mean? I got a soft spot for Odi Meji, but I'm going to give it to you raw. And I'm going to give it to you all together so that you can fully understand and grasp who is Oddi, right? And as you begin to remember who is Oddi, remember I did a couple of other Mejis, and they all begin to build on each other. And we talk about the day, we talk about the night, we talk about the in-between, right, with the Woody, and now we talk about Oddi. We talk about Oddi as a strength and power when it comes to all of the Odus, right? We look at Oddi as not necessarily the wisest, but the most arrogant of them all, right? Especially as we begin to transition from the balance of day and night to logic, and now we look at strength. Okay, Oddi has a level of strength where Odi Meji has to be looked at and has to focus on their how they resonate with Chango and Ogun. Okay, because Odi Meji, right before he transitioned in to Earth from Olorun, he became a child, and he purposely did this. He became a child of a father of Ogun, a priest of Ogun, and a priestess of Chango, in order to take the powers of these two great warriors in order to become a fierce warrior. And as you begin to transition through the Oddi series, through Odi Meji, Odi Oyekun, Odi Wuri, so forth, and so forth, you begin to kind of see where a lot of those strengths rely heavily on action, right? Oddi is all about action, to the point where it was shown that Oddi, while he was in Olorun, might not have been the best of the practitioners of Ifa, but he was definitely the most fierce because of his ways to maneuver around situations. It may not have been that he was the wisest or the more logical one, but he was the more fierce one. And he would typically get what he wants, and how he got it was typically very aggressive, right? Which is why when we look at Odi Meji, we start to look at when man and women began to consecrate, right? Began to make babies, right? We start talking about the aspects of the sperm and the menstrual cycle, right? We talk about the sperm that lives with men, and we talk about the menstrual cycle that goes and visits women. And that's how we begin to make the babies. And this is how, when Odi Meji came to the earth, he came as a baby, right? And you start to kind of see how some of these things begin to piece together within the aspect of Odi Meji. That's what Odi Meji brought to the earth, was more how unions are made. And through strength, you can achieve anything. However, we do not forget the lessons of those who came before us. Logic and understanding the balance. So we build on each other like building blocks, as if you were in kindergarten. You got the balance, you got the logic, now you get the strength. And when you put them together, you have a great unity. So let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of Odi Meji besides the strength, besides the aspects of childbirth to a certain extent, right? We talk about his ability to give life more meaning, how to duplicate the efforts of plants and animals and humans. We begin to look at the aspects even of the blood within the humans, because with strength and fierce aggressiveness comes the hot-temperedness, right? Remember we talked about Chango and Ogun being very prevalent in this sign. They gravitate to this sign. So Chango and Ogun begin to give us what? High blood pressure. We get really anxious, and we begin to fall into some of those traps in life that we got to be very careful to discipline ourselves in. Because we all have the capability to discipline ourselves, because our Oddi is a whole different concept. But once you discipline yourself, you avoid some of those things in Odi Meji, like blood illnesses. All right, to the certain point, we have to look at certain stories, right, and patakis that even talk about Odi Meji to a certain extent. We start talking about socialism. We start talking about politics. And what did Odi Meji, what else did he bring? Because when you look at strength, we look at how people use strength in order to conquer, in order to manipulate, in order to better their situation in a very selfish way. And we look at Odi Meji and we begin to think about those dictatorships, those governments that have come. And we begin to see where capitalism is a thing. We begin to see where greed is a thing. We begin to see that as humans begin to make more humans, right, through the nature of childbirth, right, what are we truly creating? We begin to see where the prospects of two warriors, a priest of Ogun and a priest of Chango, created Odi Meji through Odi Meji's mechanism, right? He created that scenario in order to be strong. Now, was that the wisest thing for Odi Meji to do? Sure, because his goal was strength. His goal was not necessarily to build on the other elements and building blocks like we explained. So we begin to kind of see where some of those life urges, some of those life choices of greed and whatnot begin to show themselves, right? And there's a Pataki that talks about the king who saw this massive animal, and he was one of the greatest hunters, and was told not to kill this animal. And this is an animal, okay, that already saw the threat and gave this king exactly what he wanted, right? So this king, and you guys probably know this name, Babaluaye. This is where Babaluaye is now gonna humble himself after this story, because it was in this story that he went for divination, did divination, but didn't follow the advice of Orunmila. Because when he saw this creature in the woods and was told to go become that hunter, he was told not to kill this beast. Fast forward in this Pataki, he kills this beast. But in this beast lived all the illnesses of the world, all the plagues, all the airborne diseases, right? All the pandemics, right? When we talk about anxiety and we talk about lunacy and we talk about all these types of diseases that came into the world, which were the babies, right? We go back into the making of things, right? The babies of death and sickness, Adam and Iku, when they made children. So very interesting Pataki as we go in and we get to see that strength is not necessarily going to lead you to success or victory. Maybe in the short term, because in that Pataki, right, he became rich, He had a lot of wives. He had a lot of food. He crowned himself king. And it was all through this animal who was saying, hey, don't kill me. I'll give you what you want. But what he was unable to give, Babaluaye, which Babaluaye at that point chose to kill him, was that he wanted to be proclaimed as God on earth. And that animal said, no, that's not how this works. There's only one God, and that's it. And that's what caused him to, again, got his blood boiling, got his strength, decided to use that, and it led to the outburst of a pandemic, right? Very fitting, especially in these times in 2022, as we see the state of the world and how it's going. So we look at certain aspects of Odi Meji, and we start to see how birth of things come. We begin to see how strength and arrogance is created. We begin to see that at the end of the day, greed, is not going to lead us to anything but probably death. We begin to see that all things in nature are certain with Odi Meji. All things, to include life, death, day, night. And when you have strength, you better be using your brain, because it's your intellect that came before your strength. Odi Meji is your logic. Odi Meji is your strength. And we must remember that maintain balance, Eyolbe Oyekun, use your head with Owudi, logical thinking, and then you can exercise Odi Meji with strength. And at that point, you are walking a little bit more righteous, right? So as we begin to kind of continue to look at, see what is Odi Meji, we begin to also look at how cunning Odi Meji is. Odi Meji was so cunning, he was able to steal, and I'm going to say steal because steal sounds about right, the ache that he uses today to overcome death. And he did that by observing actions that God did, no different than what he did when he saw the creation of the world and the universe, right? When he did one of those, and then he became the witness to creation, which is the reason why we go to Orumila or Ibabalao now to receive the sacred word of Ifa in order for us to understand destiny, wisdom, in order to walk upright and learn the principles, the guiding principles to be good human beings and always give thanks to God. He was able to take that in order to overcome death and to be one of the strongest divinities. And of course, Orumila did that in the sign of Odi Meji, which we saw that through cunningness, he was able to take the ache that will later on serve mankind in order to overcome death. And then we talk about the pack of the Ide, and we talk about Ikofa, because Odi Meji is now, you see us transitioning from now he has the ache to now all of a sudden we go into the ceremony that we're able to expend that ache through Orumila to humans in order to better understand where we're going next. And then that is why the Ikofa ceremony is also born in Odi Meji. So you begin to kind of see that as we transition, Odi Meji has a lot of components to it, a lot of building blocks to it. And we have to kind of understand, one, where we come from, which is something else that Odi Meji talks about. Two, we have to maintain that cunningness and we got to maintain that strength, but we don't want to forget where we came from again. But more importantly, we want to make sure that like Orumila, we stay vigilant, because it was Orumila when he took the aches, because he was able to spy on an aspect of Olodumare in order to capture the ache that he needed. So remember, as Odi Meji teaches us, is cunningness. Not necessarily that spying is necessary, but to be vigilant, cunning, use strength. But also remember the building blocks on what that created as well, which is the greed and the socialism, the dictatorship. And we don't want that in life. So we also want to learn those lessons on things to prevent. So I hope that Odi Meji, you were able to kind of learn some things, right? We were able to learn about his strength, which I didn't even talk about the war of the Mayomberos, right? The Palo Mayombes, the coats of the Eguns. That aspect and how the Babalaos defeated that with basically the Ache of Orula, right? Again, Orula has this Ache that he uses, and now he's able to win wars, he's able to avert death, create a ceremony and an initiation in order to help mankind. Then we look at the aspect of how man and woman create babies and how birth is done on earth, right? How they procreate. And then we talk about spiritualism. Odi Meji has a lot to do with spiritualism because of the Ache, again, that Orula captured, that opened up a lot of different doors. We talked about the greed, being careful with the greed. We talk about the all things in life are certain. Why? Because Odi Meji, as number 4, right? When we talk about Eyolbe, we talk about Oyekun, we talk about Iwuri, then we talk about Oddi, right? We see that the building blocks of life are necessary as far as balance with light, darkness, logical strength, and we begin to build on that, right? And then we begin to see that nonetheless, Odi Meji plays a vital role on what we do today as human beings with the Mano de Orula ceremony. So hopefully you take Odi Meji, you're able to regurgitate some of that information. For anybody who has Odi Meji as their Mano de Orula sign in Awofaka, Ikofa, who has that as their Ifa sign, right? If they're a Babalao, things to think about, right? Things to think about and how you navigate that sign in your life, because everybody navigates different, right? All these are different. Odileke here is different than the next Odileke because we all have different complementing Odus. We all have different Obatoris, right? We all have different Odis that have different capacities, right, to do things. So, food for thought. So with that said, Iburu, Iboya, Ibuche, Cyberland, it was my pleasure. That's Odi Meji. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe. Iburu Boya, Ibuche.
So